You are Locked On Pistons Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, here we go. Let's try that again. Here we go. Welcome into a live Locked On Pistons Postcast. I am your host, Jake Riepma. Just a brutal loss tonight. No other way to explain it. Pistons fall in overtime to the Milwaukee Bucks, 127-120, and a game you could have had. I mean, just gift wrapped. Ron Holland misses 2 free throws at the horn in regulation. Just had to make one, but we're going to break it all down. We'll go over a couple of different turning points in the game, how that overtime period played out, as well as the Isaiah Stewart ejection, because I think there's something to be discussed here more than just putting your team in a tough spot. So that's on the docket. And then, of course, we'll close it with studs and duds. But thanks, as always, for tuning in to a live Locked On Pistons postcast, your post-game destination. It's all part of Locked On Sports Detroit. And it's a good time to go over what Locked On Sports Detroit is, because, as you know, I'm on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. This is no different or not interfering with any Locked On Pistons daily coverage with Koo. You still got that, and you still got the Pistons postcast with me. Locked On Sports Detroit, just post-game coverage for all of our Detroit sports teams. So we got Locked On Lions postcast, Locked On Tigers postcast in the baseball season, Locked On Pistons postcast, and Locked On Wolverines football postcast coverage as well. But appreciate everyone's support as Locked On launches this new endeavor, new initiative. And here we are. And of course, it's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And did you know your favorite podcast now has a newsletter? That's right, introducing the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter, one stop for your ultimate team and league coverage, delivered right to your inbox. How about that? Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. Locked On Sports Detroit, make sure you subscribe. And it's a great place to just commemorate, or in this case, commiserate, because that was a game the Pistons could have had. I mean, granted, the second night of a back-to-back, always tough on the road, and the Bucks team, obviously, in this early portion of the season, are a shell of themselves, and I'm not sure what Doc Rivers has done to that team for them to be as bad as they have been, but they're now 4-8 on the season. They win 2 consecutive home games for the first time. But for the Pistons, this one just leaves such a bitter taste in my mouth. And I'm not going to pick on the kid. I'm not going to point the finger. And anybody that watches enough basketball knows that there's things you could have done differently all throughout that game. And in overtime, they run out of gas and so on and so forth. And no game is ever truly decided in one moment. But man, you're at the free throw line, 2 chances. You just got to make one. You got to figure it out. And I think Greg Kessler made a good point on the broadcast, because the first one was so miserably short from Ron Holland. I mean, you could just tell. And I understand he's a rookie. Moment was really big. The whole crowd's, screaming and trying to mess you up, and the nerves can get to you. Absolutely. But the body language from Ron Holland after that first missed free throw, and maybe and I do think he's clearly trying to put on a front based on how the second one went, but I'm not bothered. And I guess you certainly want him to have the confidence to knock down and make the second one. But Greg Kessler said, the Special K, that he would have reset from the free throw line, taken a step back, take a deep breath, clear your head, refocus, that sort of thing. And there wasn't that from Ron Holland. And I know I don't want to spend too much time on just 2 free throws, but make no mistake about it, this game is a Pistons victory if he makes one. That's just the way the dynamics of the game ended up coming down to that point where you just got to make a free throw. You're an NBA player. You've got 2 shots at the buzzer. You just got to make one of those. And it's easier for me to say sitting in this comfortable chair, leaning back in my at-home studio here watching the game, as opposed to being the man in the arena. And I fully acknowledge that. And that's why I'm not picking on the kid. But man, how different it could have been had he just stepped up, And again, listen, the first one, understandable, and that makes the second one that much more tough. But man, just reset, regather, and give yourself a better opportunity to make that second one. Off the release, I thought I had a chance. So did Greg Kessler, Special K, but it was not to be tonight. And you could see the writing on the wall going into overtime. Deflated, dejected, any other term you want to put it. Second night of a back-to-back, and the floodgates open there. The Bucks score the first 8 points of overtime. Giannis even hit a three, which we're going to talk about Giannis, because that's the other part of the other side of the coin of this game. If you were, again, to summarize, give me the Spark Notes version. Well, Ron Holland missed 2 free throws at the buzzer that would have won it, and Giannis went for 59, and he just could not be stopped. The Pistons were shorthanded tonight, which I'm going to spend more time on this in the second segment, why Isaiah Stewart felt the need to show how tough he is and get ejected and then get dabbed up by every player on that Pistons bench. It's just something I can't understand. You're already shorthanded, and you've got to be one of the guys that you can count on as a veteran player and an experienced player on this roster. To go and get ejected like that was just beyond foolish. And worse than that, and I don't want to talk about, oh, he's so gritty, he's so tough. Yeah, it's old school, and gone are the days of being able to play like that. I mean, I wish you could still play like that. I loved the old NBA and the 2004 going to work Pistons and how they were able to defend, but the rules aren't that way anymore. And getting yourself kicked out of a game with a flagrant 2 is just stupid, and it cost the Pistons tonight. And you just can't convince me otherwise. But again, more on that in a second as I proceed to go on and on about how upsetting that was. But with the Pistons as shorthanded as they were, you knew that it was going to take a Herculean type of effort in that overtime session, and they just didn't get it. So that being said, I think the biggest takeaway from this game, at times the Pistons showed some grit and some, I guess, enough semblance of fight that you walk away, and there's no such thing as moral victories, obviously, but you walk away feeling okay, and that makes it that much more bitter to then lose the game that you could have won because of those missed free throws. Now, I mean, say what you will about the rest of the effort. I mean, Malik Beasley was big tonight, volume shooter. We've talked about that at length, but he shows up in a big way with 8 made 3-pointers, 8 of 16 from the long line, 9 of 17 from the floor. Cade was at what he was. Make no mistake about it, the Pistons are not even in this game without Cade Cunningham, but 13 of 34, 5 of 10 from the 3-point line, and overall 11 assists compared to the 6 turnovers. So, it wasn't his best game, but 35 points for Cade, and he willed this team forward. And again, a night that they were shorthanded and became even more shorthanded with Isaiah Stewart getting tossed out of this game. So as for the rest of the guys, Tobias Harris, 10 points, didn't really do a lot, just 4 of 15 from the floor. Need more from him. And I thought Ron Holland, of course, we're going to talk about him missing the free throws, but up until that, I mean, it was one of his better games in his early rookie season. Jalen Duren, I wish he could have more of an impact on the game. The 9 points, he was -9 from the floor. 9 total rebounds. You're asking him to do a little bit more than what he did tonight. 5 turnovers, so not his best game as well. Now, Marcus Sasser, how about this? In the 1 point, or the one note I wrote down a lot of notes, not just one note, but one in particular was the big shot to tie the game at 104, and then with later in the second, with 25 seconds to go, the Pistons down 3. They have that broken possession in regulation, and Sasser grabs essentially Cade was on the ground just in front of half court, finds Sasser, shot clock is winding down, and he somehow, some way gets it to go to tie this game back up. And obviously without that play, Detroit's not even in the position to win this game. So it goes back to saying, hey, a game's not going to come down to just one instance. And I thought Marcus Sasser really grew up tonight, and he just hadn't been involved this season. And perhaps this is something that can, add to his confidence and his ability to contribute to this Detroit Pistons team moving forward. And so if you're cherry picking positive takeaways, I think certainly Marcus Sasser tonight is one of them. But we're going to talk more. I want to get your comments as well on anything that we've already discussed. I mentioned Giannis going for 59. Obviously, that's going to be the headliner, league-wide as far as, the takeaways from this game. I think Brook Lopez showed how good of a player he is. That block on Cade was just really, really impressive from his side of things. I know he's 7'1", but man, he just stayed, he rose with Cade. Cade was trying to size him up, and Special K even said he's a future Hall of Famer. I don't know if I'd go that far. Maybe he is, but 29 points for him. And, he's evolved as the NBA has evolved. When he first entered the league, he was not shooting 3-pointers, but he is a legitimate threat from deep. He hit a big one in overtime, 5 of 8 from the long line. And again, overtime, Pistons ran out of gas, yes, but the Bucks executed at a very, very high level tonight. So that being in overtime, I should say, in overtime. But overall, another one that gets away from the Pistons. I shouldn't say another one, but one that gets away from the Pistons because they had every opportunity to win this game. And by every opportunity, I mean the opportunity, free throws at the buzzer. You just need to make one, and they didn't. But we'll talk more about that Isaiah Stewart ejection and then wrap it up with studs and duds. Also take your comments here on a live Locked On Pistons postcast on Locked On Sports Detroit. This episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. America's #1 sportsbook is FanDuel. And good news, because right now, new customers can get in on the action. And with the right approach with FanDuel, that's right, you can make your dollar go a little bit further and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. How about that? The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, the NBA, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You can get started, like I mentioned, with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It all goes down at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Cruising right along on a disappointing Locked On Pistons postcast after a brutal loss, 120 to 127, 120, however you want to say it. Milwaukee gets the win, and just their first time this season winning consecutive home games. I found that quite interesting. And again, this isn't Locked On Bucks, but man, I wonder what has happened to that franchise. And I know it's still early, but and plenty of time for them to turn it around. But tonight, Ron Holland's missed 2 free throws, forces the game to go into overtime, and the Bucks just boat race the Pistons in overtime. A couple more comments to get to before we get into the Isaiah Stewart stuff, because that just it ticked me off. It really did. Demetrius McNeil first up. All Holland has to do is make at least 1 free throw, and he blew it. The other, Stewart's ejection woke up Giannis big time. Did Cade get blocked twice by Brook Lopez? Yes. Brook Lopez was all around the rim. And again, lots to break down on that comment, and I appreciate it, Demetrius McNeil, but exactly what I've said, and I agree with you. I feel the same way. The first 15 minutes into this postcast, that's what we're talking about. And with the note on Isaiah Stewart, probably a good time to segue into this, because Isaiah Stewart, you can't, like I said earlier, you can't do that anytime, but when you're shorthanded, the magnitude of the ejection is felt that much more. And obviously we've seen this from Stewart in plenty of times in the past. And we've seen him, try and chase down LeBron James and run through the tunnel. He's a madman sometimes. And it's just, my all-time favorite team for Detroit sports might be the Detroit 2004 Going to Work Pistons. So I love that type of basketball. I get it. But the NBA in 2024 does not allow you to play that way. And you only cost your team when you do dumb stuff like take Giannis by the jersey and throw them down. There's no other way to put it. It's not tough. It's selfish. It costs the team. And I'm afraid that the environment within the Detroit Pistons is fostering that type of mentality. Listen, I'm all for the tough mentality. I don't know. I want to make sure I clearly articulate that, but I'm not for costing your team on the second night of a back-to-back when they're shorthanded. You can't get kicked out of the game. So, and I watched it back a couple of times. It's all over Twitter. I do think it was a flagrant 2, and he should have been ejected. So, as big of a Pistons fan as I am, I watch that and I'm just like, you're hitting if you're watching on YouTube, you're hitting your head and your forehead. Like, what are we doing, man? Nobody's going to say that either. And the rest of the team are all dapping them up and yeah, you go, man. And it's like, no, I don't. And maybe I'm wrong. Somebody can tell me I'm wrong. And I embrace debate because that's what this is all about. So feel free to let me know in the comments, or if you're watching live on YouTube, say, no, Jake, you're wrong. That's who we are. That's the Detroit Pistons. But again, I'm open to that type of discussion, and I understand it's a fine line between, not showing, quote unquote, showing them who's boss versus, I am certainly not advocating to play timid or cautious or anything like that. In fact, I think there's a way to impose your presence without getting ejected. Do it between the whistles. But anyways, that's how I feel about the Isaiah Stewart ejection. And to Demetrius's point, I think it's a great point. Giannis continued to thrive, and you could even make the argument that woke him up, because look out, Giannis has 59 points. The Pistons have like 6 players because of all the injuries and because the second night of the back-to-back and because Isaiah Stewart's been ejected. And, in the end, yeah, you threw him down. You really showed him. Good going. But spent a lot of time on that. Some other notes that I wrote down during this one, the last couple of possessions down the stretch in regulation. I guess we could even back up further. Another game where the Pistons had a big lead, up 18, albeit very early, gets away in the third, 11-4 run by the Bucks to start the fourth quarter, and then they just continued to gain momentum. Part of those plays that were momentous for the home team, you got the Brook Lopez block on Cade, but the Pistons then could have folded down 7 in the fourth. They did not. They clawed back, and the way that Marcus Sasser hit that big shot to tie the game, both at 104, and then that clutch three-pointer as the clock was winding down to tie it after that 3 from Taurean Prince. Signs of growth and development for Marcus Sasser, that's for sure. Now, that being said, I just think, there's no moral victories in the NBA, and you can't walk away from this one thinking, hey, we really played tough and so on and so forth. No, you lost the game, and this is one that you could have won. That's as simple as you can make it, and that's how I choose to look at this game. But we'll wrap it up with studs and duds, and as always, feel free to participate in the program here on the Locked On Pistons postcast, all part of Locked On Sports Detroit. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Pistons with Koo. I know you are. Shout out to him. He's the realest, and like I mentioned in the open, there's just additional content. That's all. It's all part of Locked On, just post-game shows here on Locked On Pistons. It's all part of Locked On Sports Detroit. So if you're looking for a place to hop on, commemorate, collaborate, commiserate, any other eights you want to do, this is the spot. It's Locked On Sports Detroit. Now, we will take one more break and be back to tie a bow on it with studs and duds. Don't go anywhere. This episode of the Locked On Pistons postcast is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Now listen up. With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. We can all relate to this. Anybody that's got a cell phone can relate to that. So I'm pretty sure that's everybody. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, something crazy happens. The price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets, and it's more than what you agreed to. And with Mint Mobile, you never have to worry about the gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they actually mean it. So say bye-bye to overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with a premium wireless plan starting at $15 a month. And all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest networks. I know what you're thinking. Oh, yeah, there's got to be a catch. No. All plans come with that high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. So ditch overpriced wireless and join Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's Mint Mobile, MINT, mobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on the first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, studs and duds portion of the program after what I would classify as a brutal, disheartening loss that hopefully doesn't impact the Pistons moving forward. It's not one of those losses that you feel the next couple of days they can turn the page and get back after it. Next game for the Detroit Pistons will be back in the group stage of the NBA Cup, taking on the Raptors across the border in Toronto. That game Friday night at 7 o'clock. So make sure you join me for that. What else we got going on the channel? Locked On Sports Detroit. Of course, we'll have a Locked On Lions postcast on Sunday and no Locked On Wolverines on Saturday as they are off. But studs and duds portion of the program where I give my studs and my duds. Doesn't matter what team they play for because, hey, we're looking at this game and Giannis was the stud tonight. There's no other way to put it. 59 points. I believe his career high is 64, so he's pretty close to that. One off a 60 burger, 21 of 34 from the floor. He even made a three-pointer. That was in overtime, 1 of 2, and 16 of 17 from the charity stripe. He had struggled this year from the free throw line. Not so much in the game tonight. 16 of 17. Also worth pointing out, Brook Lopez had a studly game. I mean, he was he was the Robin to Giannis's Batman, but 29 points for him. Also good from the free throw line, 6 of 8, 5 of 8 from the 3-point line. And oh, by the way, he had 5 blocks, 8 rebounds as well. For the Pistons, I got to give some props to both. I'm going to say both Malik Beasley with the 8 made 3-pointers, 26 points. He was plus 13 on the night. And Marcus Sasser, I'm going to give him props for a couple of those really important 3-pointers down the stretch. Now, he was minus 14 from the floor, so it's not the overarching stud of the night, if you will. He's a little bit lower down on the list. But I said it earlier, and I would go back to this. I think he grew up tonight. That's the best way I can put it. He grew up tonight, and we'll see if that continues to play moving forward. Duds, it's Isaiah Stewart. I mean, in a game you're without so many contributors and a game that you're shorthanded, it's the second night of the back-to-back. Even if you're having an off night, even if you're a body, you need bodies out there. And Isaiah Stewart just let his emotions get the best of him. He gets tossed. And again, we can argue and debate if that's actually toughness and he's an enforcer and that's going to happen. So I get all that. I really, Rasheed Wallace is my all-time favorite Detroit Pistons. So I'm well aware that sometimes you take what you get with guys, but tonight I just think it cost the Pistons. But again, open to a discussion on that. Hit me up in the comments if you'd like. That being said, it's always a pleasure to be on the air after Detroit Pistons games, even if they fall like they did tonight to the Milwaukee Bucks. Final score in this one, 127-120. The third quarter, that's what cost the Pistons. Milwaukee outscores Detroit 38-24 in the third quarter, even though the Pistons were able to bounce back in the fourth, but not all the way because the 2 free throws from Ron Holland, if he could have made just one, they would have won this game, but he went 0 for 2 from the line. We go to overtime, and the Bucks boat race the Pistons in OT to the tune of 16-9, resulting in the 127-120 win. That being said, looking forward to the next Locked On Pistons postcast. A little bit of time off before the Friday night jaunt, but that being said, it's always a pleasure to be on the air. Don't forget, my friends, that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Pistons daily newsletter, your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pistons newsletter. Until next time, have a wonderful evening. My name is Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. I was at the Ticket for 6 years. 97 won the Ticket, Pistons flagship station, now with Locked On Sports Detroit, and looking forward to continue to bring you all the post-game coverage with the Pistons, Lions, Wolverines, and Tigers when we get into baseball season, back into baseball season, I should say. Make sure you check out Locked On Pistons with Koo. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you next time on Locked On Sports Detroit.